So we've looked at a lot of modern rifles. Most recently, I guess we looked at the Mauser 66 and the Ruger 77 Mark II RSI, and we looked at a Remington Sportsman. But I mean, we've looked at a lot of modern rifles. And then after you've, hunted and purchased and sold a few rifles, you kind of end up just wanting something different, something maybe, let's say, arguably better, at least better made. And I picked this up not that long ago. I forget which model of Mauser this is, but it's a really special rifle. But I mean, this is probably from, I don't know, 1903 or something like that, 8x57. Everything about it, when you handle it, is different. There's been more time spent, handwork on the stock and the shaping and the fitting. It's got a steel butt plate. There's a lot of work in fitting these into the wood if you ever have tried that sort of thing. The check ring is somebody sitting with check ring tools. Quite frequently, these old German and Austrian rifles, they don't have check ring on the forend because originally, as you know, check ring was to provide grip. I'm sure they could have checkered the forend if they wanted to, but everything is different. And like the magazine spring, have a look how this works. So it raises and holds the cartridges up in a totally different and far more complex way in terms of making the parts. But the operation is very simple. There's a flat spring at the bottom, and that lifts the cartridges. You can see it coming up. And the release is on this side. This is, like I said, an 8x57. A fairly small receiver ring, and everything is quite tight on this one still. And it has, decent sights, a couple of leaves, which is nice to have, and a decent front sight with a good ramp, and a sling swivel on the barrel. And these were practical hunters. This is made in Berlin. It says Deutsche Waffenfabrik. And George, I guess, Karak. I didn't look up the name. There's kind of an encyclopedia of German gun makers. I could probably look them up. But if you have the coin, and these are not overly expensive. In fact, they're quite inexpensive. It's not a bad idea to buy one of these and just try it out. It's an entirely different experience. You can see the bolt release is here. We won't take out the bolt, and the bolt handle is up front. This might remind you of, well, it always reminds me of the Verguero. Some people might think of a Mannlicher, but it's not a Mannlicher. It doesn't have a rotary magazine. It's a Mauser. I should look up the name. And this is from the scope system, which was on here, but it's not on here anymore. And we'll just throw on some glasses. We'll take a couple of shots. These things are just, they're wonderful to hunt with. They do everything, at least in 8x57, that a modern rifle will do, but they're very elegant. It's just something special about them. Yeah, it's a completely slick, proper action, nothing wrong. When you buy one of these, or if you do, if you're nervous or something about it, maybe get it checked by a gunsmith, but most of them work perfectly. The bore on this one is especially fine. You'll see a lot of them were used and then stored away. The people, I guess, just assume that they either don't work or they're not safe. And it has a flag safety at the back. You probably recognize that. It has everything that you would want in a hunting rifle. I'll flip it around just so you see the other side. Typical, fairly small cheek piece. Altogether, you know, a wonderful rifle to own, and it kind of adds a dimension to your hunting and outdoor experiences. At least I think so. And judging by the number of people that are looking for these, I think there are a lot of folks that just like owning things like this, and they never seem to go down in value anyway. All right, well, probably enough said on that. We'll see you on the next video. There's a class of rifles that a lot of people aren't familiar with. Going back in time, the gun makers offered, let's say 30-06 or 30-30. This is before the 308 and the 243 were around. There were intermediate cartridges offered in some cool rifles. This is a 25-20. And usually the 25-20 and the 30-220 were offered in the same model, so you could buy one or the other. This is a 25-20 Savage Sporter. I'll flip it around so you can see it. I guess I'll just drop the ammo. Now, somebody's gone to the trouble of putting a scope on this, and they did a pretty good job. We were just shooting some, or I was just shooting some pop cans, and it's right on. I haven't used this rifle much. I think I showed you a Super Sporter in 30-30 and a Super Sporter in 30-06, which I really liked. I mean, very basic rifles, but in their own way, excellent. So if you're thinking about cartridge development, this is before the 222 came along and people started seeing the advantages of high velocity, or relatively high velocity. The 218B, of course, I think that's, you know, more properly grouped with the 222. These are fairly slow, and they would have been used for varmint hunting at, you know, let's say reasonable ranges, 50, 100 yards. A lot of people use them for maybe game that they shouldn't have. The magazine's quite interesting because it doesn't really have any, there's no latch to secure it. You simply tip it to remove it, and you tip like like that. That's how it comes out. It looks clumsier than it is. It's actually very cool. There you can see the size of the round. So some of you might think it's kind of a 22 size action, and you wouldn't be too far off, but there's a lot more power in a 25-20 than there is in a 22. I've always found them to be a lot of fun to own, and there must be a lot of 25-20s around. I think the 1892 Winchester was available in 25-20, probably 32-20 as well. I don't know the ballistics off by heart, but it's easy for you to check that out. And so they still make ammunition. Some kind of bugs flying around here. Anyhow, we'll just take a few shots. Just it's such a delightful little round, almost no recoil. And I kind of like the scope, even though some collectors would say it's a no-no, but it's already there, so we'll just use it as is. And yeah, I mean, I just aimed at a leaf actually, and I hit the leaf, so. Yeah, you know what it reminds me of? It kind of reminds me of a handgun cartridge, but a smaller, faster bullet, but not super fast, so kind of not overdone. I just like it, very, very modest round. I probably like the 25-20 better than the 32-20, and you can use any 25 caliber bullet in the 25-20. You know, I don't know the rate of twist and all that, but that's easy to find out. Wonderfully accurate. You can see this one, you know, it's seen a lot of use, but the bore is still excellent. It's got the classic steel Savage butt plate and a decent walnut stock. And I don't really care whether it's got some marks. Somebody put some sling swivels. You know, somebody used the rifle, so there are going to be signs of use. And I took it apart, cleaned it. It's fine. I might take these sling swivels off just because I don't carry it around too much. Oh yeah, it's missing the rear sight, no big deal. And it has effective safety. I'll show you how it works. You just raise it like that. That's the safety. Anyway, not a rifle you see every day, but excellent nonetheless. A lot of fun to shoot, and ammo's still around. So if you run into one, it's definitely not something you have to be afraid of owning. It's actually one of my favorite rounds. All right, we'll see you next time.